Every year on the same date I locked every door and turned off every light because I knew she would come. People in my village believed the old house at the end of Blackwood Lane was cursed. They said no one could stay there for more than 1 year without losing someone they loved. I never believed those stories until the night everything changed. It was exactly midnight when I heard 3 slow knocks on my front door. I looked through the window, but the street was completely empty. Then the knocks came again. This time they were louder. I slowly opened the door. Standing in front of me was a young bride wearing a beautiful white wedding dress. Her face was pale, her long black hair covered part of her face, her hands were shaking, and her eyes were filled with tears. She looked directly at me and whispered, "Please do not let me die this time." Before I could ask who she was or what she meant, a cold wind rushed through the doorway. The lights inside the house started flickering and the temperature suddenly dropped. The bride stepped inside without waiting for my permission. Her wet footprints appeared on the wooden floor, but her dress was perfectly dry. Nothing made sense. I asked her, "Who are you?" She did not answer. Instead, she walked toward the old fireplace and stared at a dusty photograph hanging above it. She touched the picture with trembling fingers and began to cry. I looked at the photograph. It showed a wedding that had taken place many years ago. The strange thing was that the bride in the picture looked exactly like the woman standing in my living room. I felt my heartbeat getting faster. I asked her again, "Who are you?" She slowly turned toward me. Her voice was soft but full of pain. "My name does not matter anymore. You only need to remember one thing. If I leave this house before sunrise, I will die again." A chill ran through my body. Again. What did she mean by again? Before I could speak, another loud knock echoed through the house. This time it did not come from the front door. It came from upstairs. The bride suddenly looked terrified. She grabbed my arm with freezing cold hands. "Do not let him find me. If he sees me tonight, everything will happen again." I wanted to ask who he was, but heavy footsteps had already started moving across the floor above us. Slow, steady, getting closer, and then someone stopped right above our heads. The footsteps above us suddenly stopped. The whole house became silent. Even the sound of the wind disappeared. I looked at the bride, but she was staring at the ceiling. Her face had turned completely white. She looked like someone waiting for the worst moment of her life. Then a single loud thud came from upstairs. Another one followed. It sounded as if someone was dragging something heavy across the wooden floor. The bride closed her eyes. "He is looking for me. Please do not let him see me." I wanted to run outside, but something deep inside me told me that leaving the house would be a terrible mistake. I picked up an old lantern from the table because the electricity had gone out. The small flame was weak, but it was enough to light the hallway. Every step felt heavier than the last. When I reached the staircase, I noticed something strange. Fresh muddy footprints were leading down from the second floor. But no one was there. The footprints stopped on the last step, as if the person had simply disappeared into thin air. A cold whisper came from behind me. "Do not follow them." I turned around. The bride was standing at the bottom of the stairs. She had not made a single sound. Her eyes were fixed on the dark hallway behind me. Then she pointed toward a locked wooden door that I had never opened since moving into the house. "He is inside." My hands began to shake. The old key was hanging on the wall. I slowly took it and walked toward the door. The air became colder with every step. My breath turned into white mist. The key slid into the lock. For a moment I thought about turning back. But I could not ignore the feeling that every answer I wanted was hidden behind that door. I turned the key. The lock clicked. The door slowly opened by itself. Inside the room, everything was covered in dust. Broken furniture filled the corners. Old wedding decorations still hung from the ceiling, as if someone had left in the middle of a celebration. In the center of the room stood a wooden chair. On the chair was an old wedding photograph. I picked it up. The smiling groom had his arm around the bride. The bride was the same woman standing in my house tonight. But the face of the groom had been scratched away. Someone had destroyed it on purpose. Suddenly the lantern went out. The room fell into complete darkness. A deep voice whispered close to my ear. You should have never opened that door." I froze. The voice was not human, and it was standing right behind me. I could feel something breathing behind me. The air smelled of wet earth and old flowers. My heart was beating so loudly that I could barely hear anything else. I wanted to turn around, but my body refused to move. Then the voice spoke again. "You cannot save her. She belongs to me." The room became colder. I gathered every bit of courage I had and slowly turned around. There was no one there. Only darkness. Then the lantern suddenly burst back to life. The room was empty. I rushed outside and slammed the door shut behind me. The bride was still standing in the hallway. She looked at my face and knew exactly what had happened. "You heard him." I nodded without saying a word. She lowered her head. "He never lets anyone help me. Not for long." I asked her who he really was. She stayed silent for several seconds. Then tears rolled down her face. He was the man I was supposed to marry. Everyone thought he loved me. But on our wedding night I discovered the truth. He wanted my family fortune more than my life. When I tried to escape, he followed me into this house. No one ever heard my screams. No one came to save me. I died before the sun came up. Since that night my soul has returned every year hoping that someone will change my fate. I looked into her eyes. For the first time I saw more sadness than fear. She was not a monster. She was a victim. Suddenly every window in the house exploded open. A freezing wind rushed through every room. The front door slammed shut by itself. Heavy footsteps echoed from the second floor once again. This time they were much faster. "He knows I told you the truth." The bride grabbed my hand. "We have to leave now." We ran toward the back door. But before we reached it, a tall shadow appeared at the end of the hallway. It was darker than the night itself. Its eyes burned like cold fire. Its face could not be seen. But one thing was clear. It was wearing a black wedding suit. The shadow slowly raised one hand. The bride screamed. Then the shadow spoke my name. Even though I had never told anyone who I was. At that moment I realized one terrifying truth. He had been waiting for me long before I ever moved into this house. The moment he spoke my name, every light inside the house went out. Darkness swallowed everything around us. The bride held my hand so tightly that I could feel her trembling. "Do not answer him. No matter what happens, do not answer him." The shadow took one slow step toward us. Then another. Every step made the walls shake as if the house itself feared his presence. I closed my eyes for a second. When I opened them, he was gone. The hallway was empty. Only silence remained. Then I heard a soft laugh coming from behind me. I turned around. The bride was staring toward the old mirror hanging beside the staircase. She slowly pointed at it. "Do not look into his eyes." I looked at the mirror anyway. At first I saw only my own reflection. Then another face appeared behind me. A man wearing a black wedding suit. His face was pale and cracked like broken stone. His empty eyes were fixed on me. I spun around. There was no one standing behind me. When I looked back at the mirror, he was smiling. Then words slowly appeared across the glass. "You are too late." The mirror shattered into hundreds of pieces. One sharp piece landed at my feet. Inside the broken glass I saw another memory. A young woman dressed as a bride was running through this very house. She was crying and begging for help. A man followed her carrying an old silver knife. She reached the front door. She tried to open it. But it would not move. The man caught her. She screamed once. Then everything became silent. The vision disappeared. The bride fell to her knees. That is how I died. Every year the night repeats itself. Every year I fail to escape. Every year he kills me again before sunrise. I helped her stand. I looked straight into her eyes. Not this time. This time we changed the story. For the first time since she arrived, a small smile appeared on her face. But it disappeared almost instantly. She looked past my shoulder. Her eyes filled with fear. "He has found us." I slowly turned around. The man in the black wedding suit was standing at the end of the hallway. This time I could finally see his face. And the face looking back at me was my own. I stood frozen. The face of the man in the black wedding suit was exactly the same as mine. Every detail was identical. The same eyes. The same scar above the eyebrow. The same expression. It felt like I was staring at my own reflection. The bride stepped in front of me. "Do not believe what you see. He steals faces. He steals memories. He wants you to believe that you are the monster." The man smiled. His smile grew wider than any human smile should. Then he spoke. "You still do not remember, do you?" A sharp pain exploded inside my head. Strange memories flashed before my eyes. An old church. Wedding bells. Heavy rain. A woman crying. Blood on white flowers. I dropped to my knees. None of those memories belonged to me. Yet they felt real. The bride placed her hand on my shoulder. "Listen to my voice. Stay with me. Do not let him inside your mind." The shadow laughed. "Too late. He already belongs to this house." The walls around us suddenly began to change. The clean hallway disappeared. Old wallpaper covered in black stains appeared on every wall. The air smelled of smoke and burned wood. It was no longer my home. It was the house as it had been many years ago. Voices echoed through every room. Guests were laughing. Music was playing. Someone was celebrating a wedding. The bride looked around with tears in her eyes. This is the night it happened. We are inside the memory. If we can change what happened before sunrise, the curse will end forever. A loud church bell echoed in the distance. One. Then another. Midnight was slowly passing. We had only a few hours left. The bride reached into her dress and pulled out a small silver key. "I have carried this every year. I never remembered where it belonged. Until now." She placed the key in my hand. "There is a locked room beneath this house. That is where he buried the truth. If we find it before he finds us, everything will end." Suddenly every candle inside the house went out at the same time. The music stopped. The laughter disappeared. A deep voice echoed through the darkness. "You should never have remembered." Heavy footsteps began coming from the floor above us. Then from the hallway. Then from behind us. He was no longer chasing us from one place. He was everywhere. The footsteps surrounded us from every direction. There was nowhere left to run. The bride held the silver key in one hand and my arm in the other. "We have only one chance. Follow me." She led me through a narrow hallway that I had never seen before. The walls looked alive. Dark cracks spread across them like veins. Old family portraits watched us as we passed. Every painted face slowly turned to follow our movement. I could feel hundreds of eyes staring at us. At the end of the hallway we found an old wooden staircase leading underground. The air became colder with every step. The smell of damp earth filled the darkness. When we reached the bottom we discovered a small stone room. In the center stood a large iron chest covered with chains. The silver key fit perfectly into the ancient lock. My hands shook as I turned it. The chains fell to the ground. The lid slowly opened. Inside the chest was a wedding diary wrapped in faded white cloth. There was also a small silver ring stained with dried blood. The bride picked up the ring. Tears filled her eyes. This was my wedding ring. He took it from me after he killed me. I opened the diary. Every page revealed the truth. The groom had planned everything long before the wedding. He had poisoned her father. He had stolen the family fortune. He had trapped the bride inside the house. And after murdering her, he made everyone believe that she had disappeared forever. The final page contained only one sentence. "The curse will end only when the truth is spoken before sunrise." A loud crash echoed above us. Dust fell from the ceiling. He knows we found it. The stone walls began to crack. Dark smoke poured through every opening. The man in the black wedding suit slowly appeared from the shadows. His eyes burned with hatred. "Give me the diary. The truth belongs to the dead." I stepped in front of the bride. "No. The truth belongs to everyone." The shadow let out a terrifying scream. The entire underground chamber shook. Huge stones crashed to the floor behind us. The only exit was beginning to collapse. The bride looked toward the narrow staircase. "If we do not reach the church before sunrise, everything will begin again." Without another word, we grabbed the diary and the blood-stained ring. Then we ran toward the collapsing stairs. Behind us, the shadow laughed. "You may escape the house, but you will never escape your destiny." The first light of dawn was still hidden behind the clouds as we ran toward the old church. The cold wind pushed against us with impossible force. Every step felt heavier than the last. The shadow followed without making a sound. I could not see him, but I could feel him growing closer. The bride held the wedding diary against her heart. "We are almost there. Do not stop." The ancient church stood alone on the hill exactly as it had for more than 100 years. Its doors were closed. Its windows were broken. The bell tower was silent. I pushed the heavy wooden doors with all my strength. They slowly opened. The moment we stepped inside, everything became still. The freezing wind disappeared. The silence was almost peaceful. In the center of the church stood an old stone altar. The bride placed the blood-stained ring on the altar. I opened the wedding diary to its final page. My voice shook as I began reading every hidden truth aloud. The words echoed through the empty church. Each sentence felt heavier than the one before. The lies, the betrayal, the murder, the stolen fortune, the innocent life that had been taken. When I finished reading the last line, the ground began to shake. A terrible scream echoed through the church. The shadow appeared behind the altar. His body was breaking apart into black smoke. He reached toward the bride one final time. "You will always belong to me." The bride looked at him without fear. "No. My life ended because of you. But my soul never belonged to you." A bright light filled the church. The shadow screamed again. Then he disappeared forever. The curse was finally broken. The bride turned toward me. For the first time, her face was warm and full of life. She smiled through her tears. "Thank you. You gave me the ending I waited for every year." She gently placed the silver ring into my hand. "Keep this, so someone will always remember my story." The morning sunlight entered through the broken windows. Her body slowly became transparent. Within seconds, she was gone. Only white rose petals remained where she had been standing. I walked out of the church alone. The nightmare was finally over. Or so I believed. 1 year later, on the very same date, at exactly midnight, 3 slow knocks echoed on my front door. I opened it without saying a word. A young bride stood there wearing a white wedding dress. But she was not the woman I had saved. She looked into my eyes with tears on her face. Then she whispered, "Please, do not let me die this time." I realized the horrifying truth. The curse had never ended. It had only chosen a new victim.